Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cactus Patch. I am your host, Glitch Cactus, but you can call me Cactus. And today we're celebrating a bit of a milestone in the Splatoon community. The Popcast has reached 300 episodes, and who better to have discuss this milestone of a podcast, probably one of the original only podcasts in the scene, than the Hydra enthusiast, a father, and someone who may or may not be glad that you're taking the time out of your day to listen to us. Popgun, how are you doing today?
I'll the common misconception. I am glad that you take time out of your day to listen to anything that I do, unless I don't. I'm doing great, Cactus. There's many places I'd rather be than right here, but of the options that I have, I'll settle for this. And I will say, I did just remodel my room. This is the Popcast room that I'm in, and as you can see, there's nothing for you guys to look at.
Yeah.
I had so this is an L desk, or like a corner desk. I had it in a corner, and now it just takes up the entirety of the room that I'm in right now. I had to move it to make it easier to do something that I can't tell you about, but you could probably take a guess at what it is. But no, so it's a little bit different for me. I'm further back. I got my mic at a different angle, and I don't know how this looks on camera. I'm looking at you.
Yes.
And my camera is close. I don't know if it's come across that I'm actually looking into the camera or not, because I'm not. Because I hate that. I hate that so much because I do so many webcam things where I got to look into the camera, and when someone's not talking, I nod my head. Like, that's a great point you made. And it's like, oh, but I don't want to just sit here and stare at the camera so often.
Yeah, yeah, it's so awkward, especially too if it's like you're definitely doing something that's more like online oriented, where like the only place to look, like you said, is at the camera. So like sometimes like you want to like glance your eyes over, like pretend I'm looking at like a monitor for like important updated information, but like there's nothing there. I just gotta look like I'm not, soullessly staring into the audience.
So when I'm doing like commentary and they're like, we're switching the webcam, I'm sitting here looking at the webcam, smiling, nodding along, and then they're like, we're switching the gameplay. I immediately just go like,
yeah.
We're going back. Okay.
Yeah, just like
that was a great set. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta let yourself just relax in a sense.
You're right.
Yeah. Well,
not camera. This isn't my camera face. I don't go around looking like this all the time.
Yeah, no.
But there we go. So I got it set up perfectly. I'm ready for today.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to be one of the first to kind of show off your new your scenery. Do you plan to
my wall?
Yeah, your blank wall. Do you plan to like hang stuff up in the background eventually, or is it just gonna stay blank for now?
I don't know if I'm gonna keep it like this permanently. I kind of like my desk like this. The problem is PJ likes to come into this room a lot, and now that I'm like away from the wall, there's more like exposed wires all over the place. Where when it was in the wall, everything was kind of like neatly tucked away. He couldn't really get to.
Yeah.
But I like it like this. Eventually, there will be a green, kind of like you have right now, a green screen going up right behind me. So that's kind of why it is like this right now. But I don't know. Once whatever that is done, we'll see how I feel and how my wife and PJ feel about this setup. But it's cozy right now. I like it being cozy.
That's the most important part with a setup. As long as you're able to comfortably sit down and just enjoy whatever you have to either work on or just play in general, comfortability is always key and important. Well, I'm going to start off with something that I love to ask all the guests right away. How did you even get into Splatoon? What brought you to this tiny corner of the internet to do what you do today?
So we bought a Switch from Target, and it came bundled with Mario Kart, which is what we wanted. My wife and I wanted, because it was like I didn't play a lot of the Wii U era, because that was when I was in college, in late high school, and I didn't really have a lot of time for gaming, even though I grew up playing the NES. I remember when we brought home a Super Nintendo from Toys R Us, and my mind being blown with Super Mario World at the time. But there was a good like 2 generations where I like had a Wii U, but I wasn't like I didn't have time to game. But when I became an adult out of college in a full-time job for a couple of years, it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? Free time. Let's try a video game. So we bought the Switch, and we played Mario Kart, and I was like, oh, this sucks. I don't know if that's a hot take. It's Mario Kart 7 or 8 or whatever. It's not for me.
Yeah.
But Splatoon 2 came bundled with it. So I didn't even play Splatoon 1. And
Okay.
I just kind of just tried it out and liked it. I was a sticks player, as I would assume anybody my age would have been initially,
Hmm.
because we grew up playing GoldenEye and yeah, like even like Halo, things on Xbox were all stick. There was no motion control,
Yeah.
and motion controls made me motion sick. Like I would
Mhm.
legit feel like I was gonna barf after a game. So I played sticks for like a year. Um, it then eventually moved over to motion controls. But so how I got into competitive, because I didn't have any friends who would have like a Switch or much less want to play Splatoon with me,
Mhm.
is the old Splatfest setup was you needed 4 or 3 other people to play. Like now you can just play with one person, it'll give you 2 other schmucks to roll with. Back
Yeah.
then you had to have like a full squad.
Yeah.
So I went on Reddit during Splatfest, and people were like, Team Leo, Team Donnie, we're looking for 2 or whatever. So I eventually found out Discord existed through that, and found out about just went down the rabbit hole through there. It was like, okay, there's this clan called Sploot Troops.
Hmm.
Join that, make connections through that, build up a team through that. We find out about BNS. We found out about Low Inc. when it first came around. It's like, this is a really sus tournament, but I guess we'll give it a try. The Squid Spawning Grounds, the old SAC, and eventually just wound up to whatever it is that I do now. And all that took place in my late 20s,
Hmm.
which is weird to think about. It seems like it's gone by so fast, but the first time I played in a tournament was 2018. That was almost 7 years ago at this point. But yeah, it all started with just wanting to get a copy of the Switch, and Splatoon 2 was just bundled in with the Target.
That's pretty cool. And then like to know that you've had like I feel like it's a lot of players in general too, once they first get Splatoon, like you mentioned how you started with sticks and then slowly had to warm up to motion. I feel like that was like a lot for people who like never even played a game with motion to begin with. I know like nowadays, like, the kids nowadays, they have PC games, so the mouse is already, having that kind of motion control. So picking up Splatoon's motion is probably very easy. But like I know for me, I didn't have a PC growing up, so I didn't play those kind of games. I was sticking to like my older brother's Wii. Then we had like the 3DS. The handhelds were always my favorite. And then just when I first got Splatoon as well, it's like motion. It's like this feels stupid. So
Yeah.
it really takes some time to getting used to. And I think Reddit is the first I think I've heard people say that all the guests I've had on that where they first got started. But it's cool that it helped you kind of snowball, diving deeper into the scene. What were some of your most memorable moments? From maybe that beginning state of finding people to play the game with for Splatfest up to when you just decided to stop competing.
Well, just when I first got the game and I started to like figure out what Splatoon even was, and then I saw the league option and realized you needed a friend to play that. I was like, well, I'm never going to play that. And like, who has actual friends that would play something like this? And then I realized, oh, you can just the concept to me of meeting strangers on the internet was still very new to me, even though I grew up in the internet. The only people I interacted with were people I went to high school with,
Yeah.
and who made MySpace accounts the same time I did, and grew into Facebook and things like that. So just like getting into the Splatoon community was just my introduction into the internet world that people half my age were experiencing at the same time too, except just it's just a completely different planet from what I was on.
Mhm.
So Splatoon woke me up to a lot of different things, which I'm grateful for, and it's been a really cool experience. But yeah, just those early days, just having like I remember just being like, as a full grown adult at the time, being genuinely excited to be able to come home and play a video game because I met other people on the internet who wanted to play the game with me. And I remember the first time I got a bronze medal in League,
Mhm.
you know, which
Yeah, yeah.
nowadays is like, it's like, okay, I'm not even going to get that seventh game calculation in League because I know it's not going to be a gold medal and I don't want to like another silver medal in my app. But the first time it's like, oh my gosh, I'm something. You look in the app, we're number 20 on the world during that
Yeah.
rotation. You know, it's the little things when you're just starting out, just figuring out how to like get the most out of the video game was just genuinely exciting for me. And then you get into competitive, your goals change and you find out about, okay, well, here's the structure. I got to get this dude. I got to get banned from this tournament. Like your goals constantly change. Um, but yeah, the probably the most excited I've ever been about playing Splatoon was getting into the Sploot Troop clan, which I'm still a part of today.
Mhm.
Um, and just playing the video game casually with other human beings. That meant a lot to me at the time. It still does.
Yeah, I mean it's always the start of your journey, or as some people say, it's not the destination, it's the path you took to get there. That's always the most memorable, and that you make the most memories with. And that's really cool to hear that you're still in that group and you guys still talk and like hang out sometimes. I feel like a lot of people nowadays, like when they get to that like first kind of like group into the game or really in any community, once they're in it long enough, it's just kind of like a lot of those people, a lot of those groups, disband. They just get on with other things they have in their life, or like some people will push further to finding new groups to play with and either compete highly with. So it's really cool to hear that you still have a part of that beginning with you and you still are able to chat with them to this day. You did mention a little bit before about playing in other tournaments like BNS and of course Lowink. Did you start a TO in general before or after your Lowink one?
So I started interacting with this team called Operation Goldfish, and the captain of that team was uh called Vicious. I think her full like IGN was like My Pretty Vicious.
Mhm.
And she was a part of this tournament called Casual Fridays. So as I was interacting with her, she got me brought in like, hey, maybe you should try doing commentary for something like this. And back in those days, doing commentary means you ran the whole damn tournament. So I kind of got my feet wet through that with
Okay.
commentary, TOing, running a stream, all that stuff, and doing a horrible job of all of them combined. Um, so that's where I got to start for it. And then once I won Low Inc., they were announcing that they were hiring commentators or looking for commentators. So I was able to use like, hey, I know all the teams because I just won Low Inc., so I can talk about all these teams here. And also I have some experience doing this other tournament called Casual Fridays. So that kind of sprang me into becoming a commentator for Low Inc. And as I was just kind of, again, because you do commentary, you do everything, I was in the staff chat. And I was in staff chat, they'd be talking about verifying people for Low Inc. And I would just give my unsolicited opinion constantly about like, no, actually that player sucks. They should be in Low Inc. kind of thing. Which I wouldn't say today as like a
Yeah.
head TO. But back then it was just like, nah, that player shouldn't be banned kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, that just kind of, well, if you're just going to do this, why don't you just be staff? And it's like, all right. And here I am. So,
Yeah, just taking on the role. What was kind of like, I guess, the ladder going from just like you said, commentator and starting a little bit to staff to eventually becoming a head TO?
uh, so it was commentary first. And it, like I said, just kind of like putting my opinions out there on
Mhm.
things because I was in channel. So eventually just became staff. And around that time is when I started the Popcast too. So I became more of the face of Low Inc. because I would spend a lot of time talking about Low Inc. and people would see me in help desk and kind of make the connections there.
Mhm.
So even when I wasn't the head TO of Low Inc., people would still recognize me as like that is what they think of when they think of me first. It's just Low Inc. in general. So when a position opened up, I think eventually Kraken Mare stepped down. They approached, no, this was before Kraken Mare stepped down. They approached me and be like, hey, we think Kraken's going to be like taking a leave from this.
Mhm.
Do you want this kind of position? And I was like, I guess. Like I wasn't like, it's not something I wanted,
Mhm.
but it was more so, yeah, I'll do it. And that's been a good decision because I've been enjoying being like the head TO of Low Inc. And it's really just kind of ironic that getting a part of Low Inc. transitioned into IPL, because when I was a part of Low Inc., it wasn't IPL and there was no SOS, there was no
Mhm.
Proving Ground, Super Jump, none of that. So I got into like an organization early on, and that allowed me to kind of shoot up the ladder and be like, okay, we're making a leadership group. Who's going to be part of it? Well, it's all the people that were part of the old Low Inc. So now all of a sudden I'm at the top of this organization that has become one of the biggest, if not the biggest ever grassroots Splatoon organizations this side of the Pacific Ocean. So it's just kind of the combination of good timing and also me being cute as hell that I was just kind of able to land where it is that I am.
Hey, attractiveness kills, like you had that benefit for you.
It worked with my wife. Why can't it work with the Splatoon community? I'm a charming person.
Yeah, no,
Unless I'm not.
absolutely. And there's a reason why they allowed, you to have 300 episodes as a podcast, which we will dive into a little bit later. But so your head TO of Low Ink, or a little bit more of for Low Ink, then you start doing more of the Popcast. When did you decide it was time to focus more on those than competing?
I did I did the podcast, TOing, commentary, and competing. I did all four of those things at the same time for about 3 years.
Okay.
Um, and I don't want to use it stopped when we had our son,
Mhm.
but it's not fair to our kid to say like, oh, daddy stopped playing competitively because he had to take care of you. Like that's, maybe he'll see this 5 years in the future or something and be like, wow, that's really no.
Mhm.
I had a foot out the door because doing competitive, when you get up to the point to where Destiny Troops was able to get up to,
Mhm.
where we started out as a Div 6 team when Div 7 was the floor. So it's like, okay, we were at the bottom. And then to eventually get up to the point to where we're a Div 2 team, it's like, okay, I'm satisfied with what we were able to accomplish as a team. And I know that to take the next steps was going to require even more work than what we were already putting in, even more VOD reviewing, and all
Mhm.
this other additional time playing the video game that I just didn't want to do anymore. So it was just kind of the perfect timing of, hey, we're having a kid, and also I don't want to push for Div 1 just to say I became Div 1, knowing everything's going to take to get to that point. Um, so that was more the reason why I kind of hung it up. But I was able to do all four, and all four kind of complemented each other. The fact that I played against everybody made it easier for me to
Mhm.
commentate them. It made me a better TO because I got to interact with players outside of just the tournaments. I got to interact with them at playing against them in tournaments as well. It made the Popcast better because I knew everybody from the perspective of a player and a TO and a commentator. So the more I did everything, the more it built up my personality, I guess. I don't know, my experience
Yeah.
with what it is that I do. So but now that I don't do playing the game anymore, I feel like I've lost some of that, especially when I'm verifying low ink. I'm looking at half the teams, especially the EU players,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I don't know if this is a good win or not. Like, I have to like click on I have to verify your opponents to verify you. Whereas back in the day, I could, yeah, you beat that, yeah, get the hell out of here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so that's made TOing a little bit more. A little bit more, oh, I got to actually work at this kind of thing. But
Yeah. It's not just like
other
fresh off
than
the
that,
noggin.
yeah, I can't just rely on my hands-on experience knowledge with that. But still, being able to do all that stuff was able to kind of build things up, and I don't miss playing competitively at all. But I that doesn't mean I hated it. I just love
Yeah.
doing it. But I love what I do now more for sure.
No, absolutely. It's allowed you to take a little bit of that back seat and just kind of enjoy the waves of seeing a lot of players, start from the very bottom and work their way up higher and higher. Even if at first you don't really know, you don't recognize those names, but it's being on kind of that back end of like, hey, I got to just kind of watch from like on the standing side and just see like, hey, this player is actually like skyrocketing this month. They just shot up last month too. Like, it allows you to have more of that just seeing rather than just having to do. And like you said, it does make it a little more challenging to have to research about them, especially like you said, with if it's the newcomers in lowing. But it allows for to view more great storylines for these players to talk about on the podcast, or even easier ways of saying like, "Yep, you're banned this month. Just please leave."
Which, by the way, Loink, as we're recording this, Loink just closed, and I do have some DMs out on the side of some people who are getting the unfortunate or maybe fortunate news. So I might look to the side here because somebody's like trying to convince me that they suck and they should still be playing in the tournament, um, which is always fun.
I mean, speaking of low ink, and I guess IPL as a whole, this year was pretty massive for IPL, I'd say. Within the past, couple years, we've seen some great events come out from IPL, from Dapple, from other individuals that like to put on events. But this year really felt like an IPL takeover. How has it felt having such successful events, such as Spot World Series, two Super Jumps, and many more?
It's so one thing we've always been lacking with IPL is events that cater to people beyond the low ink skill level.
Hmm.
We've tried we've like merged with SAC, and that's been kind of hit or miss. It's never risen to the level of what SAC was when it was just a standalone event.
Yeah.
But there's always been the narrative that IPL just doesn't, like if you're a top level player, you're not going to play in SOS. Proving grounds didn't really serve a purpose anymore. So it's just more so what can we do to fill the gap that the community needs, which is, and again, if you remember back in December, the conversation that everybody was having is that the community's dead. There's no tournaments to
Yep.
play in. And IPL just kind of looked at ourselves and said, well, if we're going to be one of the leaders in the community as far as organizations is concerned, we need to step up our offerings for higher level events. So that's where the idea behind wanting Super Jump as a 3-month tournament kind of came along. The Splat World Series isn't really something that was planned on in January, like when we started the year. It just Z came to us with an idea of for a league concept, like an abbreviated league concept, which I liked. And it was just like, okay, well, how's this going to fit in with the super jumps that we got planned that we're going to be rolling out later this year? And then eventually we were just like, okay, what if we try getting Japan brought over into this? And that made sense because then we got two high level events and they're not just like, well, here's the 2-day tournament and here's the league variant. No, here's something that's completely different from each other, but they both complement each other in a unique way and is something that other orgs don't have the capability to do. So it makes sense for IPL to be the ones to step up to do it. Now, Super Jump running multiple times, I think that's important that we have something consistent like that and something to where in July, that there's going to be a super jump in December. So there's something to work towards then. Do I think we're going to be doing the same 3-month model in 2026? I honestly don't know. We'll see how the December one goes, but I think, like you said, kind of an IPL takeover. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be like
Hmm.
IPL dominating the scene. Do I want us to be seen as like the top organization? Yeah, 100% I do. But I think there's going to be more of a we're going to shift away from doing so many events, and we're going to leave the door open and dates open for other people. If you want to try making like a major, well, here's like a good chunk of window where we're not going to touch anything and leave the door open for the community to try to do stuff. But for this year alone, we saw a need and we tried to fill that need. And I think it's been a really good, I think it's been good for the to change the perception that IPL is just low ink and SOS. That we can do more than just low level events or open events that the top teams won't play in. Um, so yeah, it's been a very good year for IPL, and I think we just have to be mindful of how we capitalize off the success and also be good stewards to the rest of the community at the same time.
Absolutely. In a sense, you're leading by example, right? You're showing that, you're able to do a lot more than, as you said, just those kind of low level events and those like that weekly open that has slowly become what IPO is known for to now like, hey, we can host more. We can do a lot more. We can schedule things out later out the year and allow others, like you said, to have that time to do more if they want to. Now, I don't believe there's been much that's been planned. Obviously, surprise from the overlords, NA League. That was great.
Yeah,
Maybe they saw that calendar and like, oh, we can fit right there.
yeah, it really lucked out that Super Jump happened during the preseason.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know if there's any like actual planning that goes on with that. I mean, you just gotta. I mean, there's been times where they'll announce something right over like a
Mhm.
significant event, and you're just like, well, shit. But we'll,
No,
we'll find
exactly.
ways to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just kind of having to either roll with the punch and just keep it scheduled that weekend, or just see if you're able to change anything about it. You did speak this a little bit that these events were kind of planned early on. Were there any ideas this year that were kind of thrown up in the air to potentially be hosted, but never ended up making the final cut?
I don't think so. We're not always, but in my mind, I'm always trying to think about is there a good way to bring back proving grounds? The last thing we tried was if you won a weekly tournament and we came up with a list of tournaments that you could win, you would be invited to the proving grounds tournament at the end of each month, and we'd have like a tournament of champions. Um, and we set all that up, and we DM'd everybody, and we are gonna have this. I think it was a $200 prize pool or something,
Mhm.
and we only got 4 teams because Black Lotus Cup happened that weekend,
Mm.
and most teams left us to play in that. And I'm not like, oh, how dare they run over that. I've always been from a TOing tournament perspective, teams will play in the tournament they want to play in, and if they want to play in somebody else than your tournament, that means they would rather play in your tournament. That's
Yeah.
all that means. And you can't just be mad about that. You got to accept, okay, what can we do to change? What can we do to make our tournament better to where if that situation were to happen again, they would leave some other tournament and come play in us. And there hasn't been a solution to that. So that's just something that's been in my mind is like, is there a purpose to bring Proving Grounds back for other than just yet another monthly Splat Zone double elimination tournament, IPL version? But other than that, the future of Splat World Series, we've kind of gave that over to Ellie and Z to figure out. They've been in communication with Area Cup about some of the ideas that they've come up with. Nothing that I'm not going to break any news here on the Cactus Patch, but I will say that if there is a next Splat World Series, it probably will look a lot different from what you saw last time.
Okay.
Um, but nothing else, no other secrets that I can
Yeah.
think of. Um, and now, in all fairness, if there was something, I would just say I have no comment. But
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
openly say no, we don't have any like super thing planned.
No, yeah, I mean, especially because there was a lot of effort that had to go into the Splat World Series from multiple different perspectives, multiple different, individuals. So, it's understandable and it's good to hear that the talks are there, but there's no rush to put something out because it's fantastic things take time and they take effort, and it's nice to see that the time is being taken to slowly, experiment behind the scene and slowly move forward, as we still got plenty of time before the new year starts, and especially, that 1 year mark from when the original Splat World Series was hosted.
I didn't catch your question. I saw a DM. But did you? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We talked about this, by the way,
We
on my
did.
show. How how I don't pay attention to what the other person's saying when I'm doing an interview because I'm always thinking about the next question. So
It's all right. I was kind of just summarizing a little bit of what you were saying. But the next question I do have is last two super jumps did fairly well. Going into December, and then we got like a month and a half before that rolls around. Any expectations you're kind of having for Super Jump 7?
I'm hopeful that we're gonna see the the progress that is being made with teams in the Splatoon 3 North American League.
Mhm.
I said the full thing, by the way, is going to pay off with the okay, as soon as that ends, here's a major immediately right after that. And I'm hopeful as well that everybody that doesn't live in the United States, Canada, and Mexico that has been still playing the game for the next couple of months has something to look forward to as well. It's like, okay, the Americans been playing each other for the past 2 months every single Saturday for 8 straight hours. Now let's see what happens when Oro Jackson's put back in the mix. When we could put Noah and Gray back into the mix with PXG, with Frutella back in there. Blanks has been doing really well. So I'm kind of hopeful that this is going to be the best super jump of the three that we've had this year, just because there's so many storylines that are being built up. And we haven't even gotten to the next Sindo Q finals, which is going to be taking place. I forget. Well, I think it might be November that one's going on. So, there's going to be a lot of storylines building up to this one. So I'm hoping that pays off in December with the next super jump.
Yeah, and I feel like we're in a point now as well where, because a lot of these players, at least in North America and Canada and New Mexico, are forced to stay together longer and keep their rosters consistent. We're seeing a little bit of that drop in that kind of pickup culture we've seen, especially because a large chunk of the competitive scene is from those that continent. So it will be very exciting to see, one, if they stick, two, if there's any players that will be substituting around. I know obviously PXG most well known for having that kind of split team action, so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of fares with Milky Way. Will there be kind of that splitting up roster to form that godlike team that they've had, or what's gonna come from it? And of course, there's no telling what the overlords and Nintendo plan to do for maybe those regions, if they even do. Obviously, always hopeful to see if the the EU gets some love there. But yeah, no, I agree. I think Super Jump 7 will be the perfect opportunity. And also for the EU to form their teams and maybe hopefully have some branding. It would be fantastic. And shine some light on show where on the leaderboard they belong.
And you think about to where we were again at the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
where we didn't have teams.
Yeah.
And we didn't think of Gray. I mean, we thought of Gray as a top player, but we weren't having Gray in the conversation of, oh, is this the best player this year? Like, is it
Mhm.
is it even close at this point? And that's a product of all the tournaments that have been going on. And I think it's just great that we don't have these stupid conversations about the community's dead, nobody's playing in anything. Now we're having conversations about, well, maybe there's too much to do. Like, maybe,
Yeah.
like can we scale things back a little bit? Like, I'm tired of all the exciting things going on. The one thing I will point out,
Mhm.
viewership in general has not gone up. I don't know if you've
Mm.
been paying attention to the Overlord stuff, but I feel like they're not getting the kind of viewership they would expect to get out of their events. Well, maybe it'll like ramp up when they get to the playoffs, but I feel like the competitive scene is really strong right now. I just question if the casual audience is buying into some of these kinds of things. So that's something I've been kind of keeping an eye on as well.
Yeah, I've noticed the past even including the preseason events that they streamed, the over time it's been chunks of viewership that's slowly dwindled down um over time. And it could be, like you said, the casuals just knowing that this is repetitive and saying, why would I want to watch this over and over again, especially for how long it runs too. I know you've talked about it a handful of times already on the podcast, but it's a lot to have to want to just sit there and watch, especially for a lot of people. Maybe like, want to enjoy the rest of their weekend. At the end of the night, then the next day, it's Sunday. You got other things you're gonna want to do to finish off your weekend. If you just spent the past 6 hours playing, and then you got another 2, 3, 4 to watch the event, that's your whole day gone repeatedly. So it doesn't hurt to just want to catch it at the end or catch it the following week when they end up recapping it anyway on the Nintendo League show, which
Yeah.
has been always consistently exciting to watch. But even then, I think you can kind of point the lines where the viewership starts to drop there too, just because I think it's stuff that is cool for like maybe people that want to get into competitive. I think it's nice to opening that door and kind of bridging that gap from Nintendo now, not just the community itself. But it is slowly kind of being repetitive, especially if you're, a very in tune competitive player. You're sticking to maybe see one or two different things and see what might be fun that they're adding to it. But then you're tuning off that video.
I've always said this even before this upcoming league. I've been saying this for years because it's true.
Mhm.
The only reason you see Overlord events is because they're trying to sell the video game
Yeah.
to people who don't play it. And I'm not like criticizing that. Like, how dare they try to make money off the product they created? And we benefit obviously from that to some extent. But everything about it is catered around that. Why are the commentators explaining tower? Because they're assuming the audience has never seen. Why do they have to play every single mode like turf war? It's
Mhm.
because they want the see the entire game, everything that it has to offer there. So I'm hopeful that the overlords get stuff out of this that they want to get out of this. And yeah, like the viewership with the preseason, and I don't have like the numbers or anything. I'm just going off of like what I see when I'm watching this every single week. It
Mhm.
seemed like the preseason, which was won by Duck Motif versus Triggerfish Zone Supremacy, that got more views because it was the first week period and everyone's just tuning in to see it. And I
Yeah.
think week after week you get, okay, I kind of get what's going on. And that's probably you're probably going to get fatigue later on. It's like, okay, Milky Way versus FT versus Five again, because these like nobody can beat any of these three teams, and that's just what's left.
Yeah.
But I think it will skyrocket again when they get to the playoffs. And it hopefully whatever the overlords wanted to get out of this event is what they're going to get, because they're putting a lot of effort into this sucker,
Mhm.
a lot of effort, and that's cool to see. So I hope they get whatever they're looking for out of this.
Yeah, I mean, they've really dove deep, at least for the competitive side, and I really like that they're using all resources imaginable on their end, or even like, bringing so many community members into it, whether it's for those, gimmicky, fun type of events they host and during a show, to having the most well-known commentators in the scene for the past, practical decade, being commentating the finals of the event every Saturday. I'm excited to find out who they're going to have tomorrow. But like you said, yeah, most of that viewership probably will skyrocket once again once it's like, all right, here are your top 8 teams. Here's, they're going to compete for it, for kind of that that's the point when it matters, right? I feel like right now it's like, yeah, you can earn 100 points, 80, 60, whatever. Like you said, they're going to see a lot of back and forth between Milky Way 5, FT Wind. At some point, I imagine Moonlight's going to fight their way in there for the top 4. But it's been or Duck Motif or just a handful of other teams in there. But it's going to be very repetitive. So once we see that the final playoffs pretty much go underway, it'll be interesting to see the concurrent and also in the league show to see how that reflects over on YouTube, of course, too, because I feel like that's a lot of a good opportunity a lot of players want to have, especially as like a refresher if they missed the last week.
And it's so obvious that there's people outside of the community getting exposed to Splatoon
Mhm.
because you'll read the comments and they'll be stuff like lower the price and like what is what is what is like Mother 3 coming out and things like
Yeah.
whatever game people are wanting released now. It's like, okay, this isn't even related to anything that's going on. But that, you don't get, nobody watches a Splat World Series video
Mhm.
and complains about something completely unrelated. It's all about the content that's actually being put out there. Um, but yeah, it's a cool little thing. The top 8 teams, we already know who like 7 of them are going to be after 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and even with that, we already know who the top 3 teams are going to be. I was going to do a segment on this week, but I didn't end up doing the show because I was rearranging my room. But eventually, I guess next week I'll just kind of break down like 5 Milky Way and FT Win are like just they're not even in the same category as everybody else.
Mhm.
Hypernova has a horrible record against all 3 of those teams in the first 2 weeks. Moonlight, we give Moonlight a lot of credit for beating FT Win in that random Freedom Dive Monday tournament back in July. And you look at what they've done against the top team since then, and it's like, okay, that this isn't good either.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be, yeah, like you said, week 3 through 8, it's not going to be super on the edge of your seat kind of thing, unless Moonlight flips the switch,
Mhm.
which they're capable of doing. But when they get knocked out in like the losers round 3 or 4 or something like that, that's when they're like, all right, who is 5, flip a coin, fly, Milky Way, FT Win, who's feeling it this week kind of thing, which I enjoy watching. I'll watch that. So
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty much staying up each weekend to finish after competing myself, just watching it after enjoying that 1 hour break to get something to eat and just keeping up to see these. I like last week they went to a game 5 and they almost had a bracket reset. Like that was entertaining to see. Now, will it be repetitive like that every week going forward? Probably, but it's exciting to see if it will be because you know that there those 3 teams and some random fourth that gets thrown in that they take a game or 2 off of one of those teams in the loser side of the bracket is going to be very exhilarating to want to see with your own eyes and not just hear about it from Nine and Jordan Ken on a recap, where they talk about it for each like a moment in that game for 5 seconds and then they're on to the next set. So it's nice to see the whole thing play out. And it should be exciting. It should be very exciting to see going forward, especially to those that are more dedicated to seeing competitive to the extent like that we do.
yeah, it's a nice overall thing. I'm glad it exists. And I'm glad Loinc's going to run this weekend with, after drops, we're going to get below 100 teams. I'm glad we can coexist with the overlords at the same time. So everybody wins here.
Absolutely. That's the best part, making sure that our own events get some spotlight in the community next to Nintendo's. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit here and talk about what I actually brought you on here for. What was the idea behind creating the Popcast?
I don't remember.
I love it.
But it's funny because at any point I could go back to the first episode, which I still have up on my channel,
Hmm.
and I probably go in depth and describe like, here's why I'm doing this, here's what this is. I don't, I've never gone back and listened to that because it's cringe to me.
Fair.
Because of like, I mean, you probably don't listen to or watch your early content either, probably because you're like, oh, I'm a lot better, I've improved.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to look back at to a point to where like the point that I was at is not going to match where I am right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I forgot why I did this. It's just 300 episodes later, I'm still doing it, and it takes 21 days to make a habit. I'm on year 5, so I, I don't know how to stop, Cactus. I don't know how to stop. I thought there's several times I thought I'd run out of something to talk about, but no, you just open up Twitter. It's like I can talk 30 minutes about this stupid post that this person had. Um, Originally, it was I just won low ink,
Hmm.
and I, it. I got a lot of people reaching out to me, DMing me like, congratulations, all this stuff. Hey, I want to scrim your team now. All of a sudden, it's like, well, you didn't want to scrim me yesterday. Um, and now it's like, I think it would be cool if there was somebody who spent time talking about all the stuff that was going on in low level because there wasn't anybody that was doing that at the time. So I just started up a podcast where I just talked about other low level teams and low level tournaments. And it was successful, however you define that term. I thought it was successful not because it got hundreds of viewers or anything like that, but because people tuned in and they were talking about it and they liked it, mainly because I was saying nice things about other people.
Mhm.
And whenever your team did well in a tournament, they would always tune in the first time in chat or something like that because they wanted to hear me say something about them. And I understand that, and I think that's kind of the charm of the early episodes of the podcast. Because like, okay, here's this guy who is paying attention to what I'm doing, and I might not be the next FT win or something like that, but there's still somebody who is talking about and understands what my team is going through, and that's a cool thing. So it was promoting the stories that nobody else was talking about originally, and just as I got older into the scene and my team started to grow, so did the Popcast. Now it's not a skill cap podcast anymore. It's an open invite tournament essentially.
Mhm.
Do we spend a lot of time talking about low level stuff? Still, yes. Um, Low ink is always the episodes that get the most views when we do a low ink recap thing. Um, but yeah, it's kind of grown over time to just me trying to imitate the sports talk radio shows that I've always grew up listening to. I try to be the Splatoon version of Dan Patrick. Colin Cowherd would always do like the top 10 NFL teams of the week, and he wouldn't go like number 10, the Eagles, number 9, Cowboys. It would be like number 10. This team has been improving a lot on the defensive line, and they're getting all. So it's like
Mhm.
I stole that, became the low ink top 10, and how I delivered that is how I heard it on the radio through sports things. So I've just come up with new ways. How would I like if this was a sport radio and I was talking about baseball and football, how would I want that to run? And then I just sub that out and put in the Splatoon community in its place. And I just keep having fun with it. So I keep doing it. And yeah, you blink and 300 episodes have gone by, and 5 years as well. It's so bizarre, and there's not like there was some milestone like, oh, I want to
Mhm.
get to 300, and it's not like 300 means anything to me either.
Yeah.
But it's just I just keep doing it because people keep listening and they keep liking it, and that means something to me. So it comes Monday, I'm in my routine, turn on the camera, let's go. Hello, friends, welcome back. Just fire away.
Did you ever think you'd get this far to 300 episodes? Was there at a point where like, you're like year 2, year 3, you're
No,
like this is not going to happen?
I didn't think it would be like I'm gonna get canceled or something, or like, oh, the producers are gonna be like, yeah, we're replacing you with a different show. I mean, it was
Mhm.
on my channel. The only thing that would have stopped me from doing it is me.
Yeah.
And a lot of those early episodes, I didn't have a lot of people watching live, but I
Mhm.
always remembered that there's a bigger audience who watches it not live, who will
Mhm.
watch the VOD later. So I got into a routine of, okay, even if my chat's not busy, I'm commentate or I'm talking to people who are watching this in the future as well. So as long as there's somebody listening and I have interesting things to say and I don't get tired of it, then I'm just going to keep doing it. So it wasn't so much like, oh, I never thought I would get to 300. I guess more so, I didn't think I would want to keep
Mhm.
doing it, or that I would enjoy it as much as I have been, or that nobody would call me out and be like, bro, you're 35. Go do something else on your Mondays. So so I don't know. Like, there's no. Well, now I
Mhm.
got to get to 600. If I
Yeah.
got to episode 1,000, I think I calculated it. I think I would be pushing 50
Oh my
at that time
god.
because it took me 5 years to get to where I'm at now, and I'm 35.
Mhm.
So you think like another 600 to be 45. Yeah, I'd be pushing 50 if I got to 1,000. So, but I might be here 15 years later talking to you,
Yeah.
and you're gonna look completely different then, being like, "Did you ever think you'd get to episode 1,000?" And I'd be like, No, I did not." It's,
Yeah, there was never anything that in your mind would want to stop you from just hitting that go live button and doing the research that you do. I just saw this now because you mentioned how like there's a lot of people that like watch or listen to it on like the offline. What was the decision to stop putting it on Spotify?
I because I'm lazy, really. Um,
I'll never
it,
forget like there was one episode you said that you were on Spotify. And I was at work when you went live. I was like, let me try to find it.
Yeah, so for the longest time I couldn't figure out how to do it, and then somebody DM'd me, and we got a way to get it up on there,
Mhm.
and it didn't get a ton of views. And maybe if I stuck with it, maybe it would have grown over time. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it was just like the podcast is unbelievably lazy. Like it's and that's the secret as to why it's been able to last so long, is that I've gotten into a routine that doesn't require any work.
Mhm.
um and the putting it up on Spotify probably doesn't require a lot of work to someone who knows what they're doing.
Mhm.
To me, it was like, okay, well, this is not worth the effort to probably just click like 3 buttons to somebody else. And then when I went to IPL, it's just like, okay, well, let's just not worry about this.
Yeah.
If there's somebody within IPL that wanted this, if like there was an IPL channel and somebody wanted to put it up there, go right ahead. It's not going to be me.
All right, that's completely fair. I don't blame you
Are
at all
you on
for that.
Spotify or anything? It's
You know, I
just here on YouTube,
tried to
right?
figure it out, and I couldn't. And I was like, you know what? It's easier. Like, yeah, like you said, it's easier to just put it on, yeah, Twitch and YouTube. Obviously, I believe Dapple. If we don't stream on YouTube, which today we're not. Sometimes it just depends how like the earlier days go for setting it up. Because I know today was Triton Cup. But we'll just do it on YouTube, and then we'll just upload the VOD on there. They upload on theirs, and I upload on mine as well. So that's always the better route to go. But yeah, no, I'm not on Spotify. If I could and I had the time to figure it out and put it up, maybe. But I don't think anyone's logging into their Spotify and listening to the next Cactus Patch.
Which is fine. Just fine. You
Yeah.
can. I mean, for me, I listen to everything on YouTube, anyways.
Hmm.
Like, I spend a lot of time walking around my kitchen, which is where most of the episodes of the podcast are written. Just when I'm walking, thinking,
Yeah.
and I'll just have like a YouTube video up that I listen to. I don't even watch. So I just assume everyone else is like me if they want to absorb my content in some way. That's how I listen to you and Beep and everybody else.
Yeah, no, that's the easiest way. It's a good way to fill that void of sound when you're trying to make time go a little faster. You got something else you're doing. Um, what are some of your most memorable episodes, if you're able to recall, of the podcast?
The most memorable ones are always the ones that are the least fun to do, which
Hmm.
are the ones where we talk about heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Like one of the first times I remember like feeling not uncomfortable, but just kind of like I wonder how people are going to react to me talking about something like this, was maybe like 4 years ago, when it just kind of came to light that the plus servers were sexist.
Hmm.
And if you were a woman in the plus servers, you weren't really treated nicely. And you weren't giving, like, when people were voting for you, they weren't giving you a fair shake. And when people were leaving comments under your profile, they were saying very inappropriate things, and it just was just kind of let slide for a long time. And a lot of women were starting to speak out about it on Twitter, and I was like, okay, well, this is something that should be said on a podcast. So I that was the first time where I kind of went on and talked about my thoughts on the whole situation. And I remember reaching out to a couple of people at the time and being like, hey, would you want to come on and be a guest and talk about this topic? And they just weren't available. And and those people eventually did come onto the podcast later. I didn't for something completely related. Um, but episodes like that, you don't
Mhm.
want to talk about splat safety, um, unless you have like a guest on to where you can like, well, what do you think about splat safety? You say all the stuff, but when it's just me, it's like, here's my thoughts on it, and I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna filter my thoughts. I'm gonna give you exactly what I think should be said, and I try to always think about what are things people, what are points people are not focusing on,
Mhm.
what are things people aren't talking about, and let's try to highlight those kinds of things. We didn't shy away from jackpot situation. Have covered that many times.
Yeah.
Um, in several other instances as well. It seems like whenever IPL f's up, I'm kind of the the PR person who, because like the podcast will come on after a weekend of IPL doing something crazy, and I'm like, hey, so here's what happened, guys. And it's like, so like I'm the face of accountability when it comes to our organization as well. But yeah, those are the ones that I'm probably the most proud of at the end of the day, because I feel like I do a justice to those heavier topics. And those are usually the ones where I get DMs from people afterwards being like, "Thank you for talking about that," or I don't agree with you, but I appreciate you talking about this kind of topic.
Mhm.
So those are the ones that I will look back on and be like, I'm glad I tackled those and didn't just take the easy route and be like, well, let's just talk about low ink again today, guys. You
Yeah.
want to do that? No, let's if we're gonna do this, and I want to become across as an authentic person, we got to tackle these subjects, and I'm proud that I've done that.
Yeah, it's I was gonna say like it's besides social media posts, you don't really see any content in general made around stuff that's really deep like those kind of conversations can get. So I feel like it's refreshing in a sense to have some form of content that obviously is not made for this fact of like of views or get or anything like that. It's more of just like talking about the topic that needs to be more than just like everyone liking, retweeting, and putting their 2 cents in like a quote retweet, hoping to oh my gosh, what is it called, ratio,
Get clout.
get
Yeah,
clout,
yeah,
yeah, but
exactly. Yeah.
ratio the original post. It's like, it's nice to have that kind of real talk, and also just see some people also like have a lot of genuine response to in like the chats as well. I know it's also like it's rare. Do you see anything like that too on like maybe like the YouTube end of it too? Because sometimes that can get very clickbaity, very outside the obviously intended audience. Where something like a live stream like you do, it's very easy to have people that are maybe interested and want to hear someone else's thoughts about it. That's more logical than just some 13-year-old who's like, I need clout for this real quick.
Yeah, and it's I feel like I have a responsibility to kind of do that as well, just because I am an older person in the community. Um, and that's not to say like that makes my takes better than anybody else's takes, but I feel like a lot of people do tune into the podcast to feel like, okay, well, let's weed through the crap, let's weed through the ratios. What is actually the story here? And like, let's have a conversation about it. I don't think I've done a taking your call segment on heavy episodes, because I know that can go sour really quickly.
Yeah.
But whenever like the chat is going on, I feel like there's always healthy conversations going on with the idiots in chat during those things as well. So it's not like, like, oh, I'm changing the world whenever, or that I'm doing anything important. But I feel like there are at least a niche group of people that appreciate those kind of conversations going on. Um, but man, do I hate doing those episodes?
Yeah.
Do I hate just like I don't look forward to any of that. And I spend a typical episode of the podcast is written in like a couple hours,
Hmm.
maybe less. I'm always like writing in my head, especially when I'm driving. I'm like at a stoplight, like just like getting passionate about some random stupid topic that I'm talking about. But when I do like heavy episodes, I have to like really sit down and have to like not write word for word, but really write down more in depth than what I typically do. Cause like if I F this up, that's it.
Yeah.
Like I lose credibility. So I really have to focus on those, and I really want to get those right, which is not fun to do, but it's still important.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's how it's meant to be too, right? Those harder topics deserve that more dedication and that time put into what you want to speak to them, especially with how sometimes how long a lot of that information you can just kind of bleed through on social media too. It's most some stuff usually it's over in a couple hours. Other things, depending on the severity, can go upwards of a couple of days, weeks, months, etc. So it's completely understandable for it to be definitely I could reach out being frustrating to have to talk about. And there's always times where like I like to always think like when I don't make any like posts or remarks or anything, it's because like it doesn't need more fuel to the fire in a sense,
Yes, yeah,
or more
exactly.
voices to it. So a lot of times I like to just see it kind of sort itself out and let the people that deserve to have their voices heard actually push through on the timelines and on the space, and not something I'm going to post just kind of take away from that. Um,
Exactly. One thing I learned from the when the jackpot situation first came to light last year was, well, let's just retweet people of color's takes on this. Like let's pump their voices up instead of like, well, here's the take that I have. Now, like eventually I'm going to give you my take on my show, but yeah, with social media, I've learned the value of retweeting or reposting other people rather than just being like, well, here's my funny take on this, and
mhm.
then like, well, here's my serious take on this. No, like yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
I like that answer because that's the right one. Uh, Not a lot of people get that though.
Yeah.
So
No,
even
exactly.
blue sky can
Yeah.
get kind of cringe at times.
No, absolutely. It's just, and that's the kind of community in a sense that we have when you have so many people of such a large variety and range of ages. You're bound to have, even the cleanest of me social medias are not truly clean. There's always that grum in the corner that was missed, and finds its way over. So it's slowly but surely. I'm sure like as like more people mature, they kind of get that understanding, and I'm just glad as well as myself, I was able to kind of have that understanding from the get go, and not have to find out by experiencing that or being like like told or having something happen for it. It's just like no, like I know how important it is that certain people's opinions need to be heard more than me just giving some take that honestly for me that doesn't matter if I say anything like that. Like you said, make sure they're those other people's posts shine more and shine through, because there's the voices are the ones that matter.
You know, it's not lost on me the fact that if I had if I was in the Splatoon community as a 13-year-old, I would have been so dumb. Like I would have like I'm kind of fortunate to where social media didn't become a thing until I was in high school,
Mhm.
and it didn't become like this. And even then, you're just interacting with people in your class. Like there's no schmuck in California that's going to hear my thoughts on my English 100 class or something like
Yeah.
that. But now we're in a world where any 13-year-old can just give their opinion on anything, and that's their legacy forever. Like
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if they delete it, if somebody else screenshotted that, you'd be like, well, I was just a dumb 13-year-old. Well, now the whole world is seeing you be a dumb 13-year-old, which is, I don't want to go too deep, but I'm
Mhm.
this always in the back of my mind is like, okay, well, when PJ gets to an age, how am I going to help him navigate social media? How am I going to teach him that a DM is not a private conversation you're having with another person? I would know my DMs get screenshotted more than anybody else in this community. It's happened twice today,
Yeah.
which in a fair way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, I mean, I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but yeah, it's not lost to me how we have a lot of young people in this community that grew up in a time to where a lot of their teenage years are documented forever in ways that where my teenage life never was.
Mhm.
And if anybody finds my Facebook, I can instantly just like get rid of it. Boom. Like all the cringe things I did in my high school years are gone. Everybody else is just kind of out there forever, which is it's just something I've understood as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure, slowly over time, people will start to realize that. I feel like the people that always realize it first are the ones it comes to bite back, obviously. But for those that are fortunate to realize it, soon enough, are they usually the people that, like, from the beginning were just kind of like, they had that second thought, they were like, this is probably not good. I don't know why yet, but it's definitely not. And the understanding, comes later, if it ever does.
Yeah. Yeah, some people are just jackasses.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but
So you were saying before how when it comes to writing the notes for your podcast, you write them in the kitchen, you write them for a couple hours. Sometimes you're driving, you'll get home and you write them down. Where do you store all of these notes that you write, and what has been maybe like the strangest thing you've had to write some notes on?
oh, I have all of my they're kind of in the corner here. Hold on.
Okay.
Almost got it's mixed in with my tax documents from each year that I have to send to the IRS. So but I hope I didn't pull out any of that. But this is essentially every episode of the Popcast,
Wow.
for the most part. And they're not in any particular order. What happens is the current episode is on the clipboard right in front of me.
Okay.
And then when I feel like I've got too many of these on here, I'm just like, all right, let me toss them into the filing cabinet, and they'll just get jumbled around.
Mm.
So everything's on here. At one point, I did have this, and I
Oh,
would do
nice.
like every episode was just like 2 pages. It was
Yeah.
all neatly organized, and I really liked this. This was like 2 years ago. I don't know why I didn't buy another one of these and just fill that up, but I think it was just a lot easier when I was at work to just grab a sheet of paper out of the copier and just start writing stuff down and just go with it. Um, but I mean, I don't know why I hold on to these because they mean
Mm.
nothing to me. Like, so when I write an episode, I'm not like, it's not word from word. It's just bullet points, and I usually wrote it like 3 or 4 hours before the podcast goes live. So it's I understand this bullet point leads to this corner of my brain that has a 5-minute tangent on what this bullet point means.
Yeah.
And that only makes sense to me in that moment. If I were to look at a previous episode from like 2 years ago and I just read a bullet point, I'm going to have I have no idea what I'm even trying to say. Because it meant something to Popgun 2 years ago. The Popgun of the future has like, where is he going with this? And I don't even know like half the topics of these things are, but I don't know. I hold on to him just because I feel like I should.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do keep all of them for the most part. I don't know why I went away from the notebook. This was really cool. I should just kept doing that.
Hey, 2026, you could be a New Year's resolution. Start using another book.
I could, yeah. It could be.
Have you ever accidentally, because you said you have them in the same areas you have your tax documents, have you ever accidentally like went to send them and found a podcast episode within the pile?
Oh no! So that like after I've already printed out, I just like stash them in there. Which those should be in like another filer, like another folder within the filing cabinet.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just goes to show you like how unorganized I am with everything that I do. Like this is 5 years right here.
Or I mean, hey, maybe the popcast notes are just as equally as important,
It is.
As important
here's
as tax
here's a
documents.
bunch of questions I was going to ask Magic. And I don't even know when. This might have been the first time I had Magic on or the last time. I had him on like 4 different times. I just have a bullet point here that says bad apples. Like, what were we talking about? I don't. I hope it was good.
Yeah, I mean, that specific topic probably not about anybody good, but I mean, I'm sure the topic I drew some great knowledge from Magic's brain.
Yeah, anytime I have Magic on, it's always Magic's. I don't know who my favorite guest is, but Magic's like on that list for sure. I mean, you've had him on too. That was one of my favorite episodes of you. Talking to him about land stuff. He's always got some good takes about things, and he's not afraid to to spew them out, which I always appreciate.
Yeah, I'll never forget that episode I had with him because right before we were gonna start, I live right off of a highway, and a car had swerved and hit a light post. And I remember like saying, "Magic, give me a second." Somebody hit a light post, and I ran out of my house to make sure they were okay.
That's well, there you go. That's some memories of
Yeah.
stuff. Have you ever lost power or anything like? Well, first off, do you live in a place that does lose power at some point?
Not often, but I live in New Jersey, right? So obviously, because I'm near like the obviously close to the coast, sometimes like the weather can be a little unpredictable. It could be a little stronger than others. I've never had a point where I've lost power, but I've had points where like there'll be a bad storm, and then obviously like sometimes like the connection to the internet provider won't be the strongest or the greatest because
Yeah,
of weather stuff, molecules and all that jazz. So I'll have moments where like there'll be spikes and it'll like lag sometimes, but um thankful 42 episodes in, and no power loss.
that's that's what's crazy to me. We don't lose power a lot. I would say like maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Um, every now and then my computer will just like shut down,
Hmm.
and none of that's never happened. I I sneeze. You would ever talk to my wife about how often I sneeze? I sneeze like 50 times a day. I've never sneezed on an episode of the podcast. I don't know if there's something about just like talking constantly keeps you from sneezing,
Hmm.
or if it's from 6 to 7, God has control of the power in our house. But
Yeah.
it's been suspiciously perfect for every episode. That it's like there's got to be a point where the internet explodes mid sentence or something. It's never happened. Never happened.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's got to happen at some point, but like the one you'll start to anticipate it, and then when you finally stop anticipating it, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. Episode 301.
Yeah.
Boom, mid thing, and it's just like, all right. And you know what's funny? I've actually like mentally prepared for that,
Hmm.
because if that happened like early on when I was doing this, like the first 100 episodes, I would have been devastated.
Yeah.
Now I would just been like, I would just post on Blue Sky, yeah, like yeah, power went out, GG's. Like it wouldn't bother me at
Yeah.
all. I would just be
GG,
like, all
see you
right,
next week.
the episode, yeah, yeah, for real. Just like, all right, we'll just try it again another time. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm thankful that that doesn't happen here. I mean, I'm glad also. I mean, I think that'd be also pretty fun. I think the most fun parts I remember from some of your podcasts isn't when the power goes out, but it's when you'll raid somebody and they end their stream like the second
It's,
you hit it.
yeah,
So we go to a
yeah.
blank chat.
But
Props
see,
to the chat though.
I have the problem of now that I'm on the IPL account, I
Hmm.
can't just raid any random person. It's like, oh my
Hmm.
God, IPL's raided me. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I hope like like IPL as a whole isn't endorsing you. So like if you
Hmm.
suck, that's gonna blow back on Hoenn and Grace. So I hope you're not cringe. And also don't get too excited. It's just the Popcast. You're not getting raided with
Mm.
Super Jump or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, those are the moments where they think that's the start of more, and when it's really just like, no, you were the only one that
Yeah.
was live. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
did you ever have any topics that you wanted to discuss on the show, but you couldn't due to literally any reason?
Um, I've had people reach out to me before asking me not to talk about certain topics.
Hmm.
And sometimes I was, well, actually, whenever I said, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it, it was because I already came to that decision myself.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When Splat Safety got hacked,
Hmm.
I wasn't going to do an episode on that because I didn't want to bring more attention to it.
Yeah.
But I eventually did talk about it when it became a little bit more of an easier time to talk about. Things have died down.
Hmm.
Um, but people DM'd me at that time being like, "Hey, you shouldn't do an episode on this." And I was like, "Don't even worry, I wasn't going to talk about this." Um, I can't remember the exact example, but there was one time where somebody DM'd me about something to where they were like, I don't want you talking about this, or I would appreciate it if you didn't talk about this. And I did anyways because I felt like no, this can't be swept under the rug. Like this
Mhm.
has to be talked about. Like this is an important kind of thing. Um, I've never regretted anything I've said on the podcast.
Mhm.
There's been times when people have reached out to me and like, hey, I didn't appreciate you saying this kind of thing. There's been a few times when people have like started fights with me in
Mhm.
DMs about some of the things I said. And I've always stood by what I've said. And a lot of the times when people are reacting negatively to something that I've said, it's like, well, did you play the clip 2 more seconds and get the full context of everything that I'm saying? Because sometimes they'll just look at the one. Whenever I talk about a topic, I try to hit it from all different angles.
Mhm.
I don't try to go like, here's just the one point of view. Like, well, no, let's flip it around. Let's talk about what the other problems are. And it's like, let's try to make this not like as balanced as possible, but let's give everybody the full picture. And a
Mhm.
lot of times people will just clip the one thing that I say and not get the other. Well, here's where I bring it back around. And they'll try to paint me as something else. And it's like, no, here's the other part that you purposely cut out, that you purposely missed
Yeah.
of what I was trying to say. That doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough to where I'm just it's frustrating.
Mhm.
But that's why I always say I don't regret the things that I say or the approach that I take them. Now, even with full context, there's been things to where people have been not happy about the things that I've said. And I just got to own that. I've never deleted an episode of the podcast. I don't think every single one from IPL has been put up on YouTube, but the VOD still exists somewhere
Yeah.
in like the IPL's files. They can be released at any time. I've never edited an episode of the podcast. Somebody asked me when I re-upload it to YouTube, can you edit out like where you say this and this? They're like, no, I'm keeping that in. And it's not like they're saying, hey, you revealed my personal information. It's just more like, hey, I just this kind of rubs this person the wrong way or something like that. And it's like, I understand that, I appreciate it, but I feel like what I said needs to be heard and is
Mhm.
still important to be out there, and I stand by it. Um, but other than that, is there any topic where I wanted to but didn't? Probably. And again, it would just fall into that line of like, oh, we don't need more attention on this.
Yeah.
Because like this is serious personal information kind of things. Like we don't need to draw attention to that. Um, but no, I feel like I've covered everything that I wanted to, at least.
That's good. I like that answer of making sure like there are topics where it's like definitely don't need more light to it, and that kind of ties back into what we were talking about before, how like when it comes to even like making like posts or anything, it's best not to draw more attention than it's already being given by those involved and the extra individuals that want to share their thoughts on it. Are there any topics that, and I know your answer is definitely yes, but I guess more of what are they? Topics that you're tired of having to discuss?
It's tired. It's funny because there's a lot of episodes of the podcast that are basically repeats,
Hmm.
but I've been doing this so long, my audience has changed so much. I get, especially every kind of like low ink episode, the team that won low ink will tune in to see what I have to say, and then they'll never come back. And that's fine. I
Yeah.
completely understand that. But so if I like do a topic on splat safety, well, the last time I did it was like a year or so ago. The whole audience, like I'm basically recycling everything I said before, but it's to a brand new audience.
Hmm.
And I'm not tired of it because it's easy for me to write. It's
Yeah.
just what did I say last time? How do I make it a little bit more, what I change this or that kind of thing. So, there's I've talked a lot, not recently, but like this year, there was the too many tournaments
Hmm.
segment that I've done. And I think one of the cool things about that is my stance on a lot of things has changed in the
Hmm.
past 5 years. Like you could probably watch an episode where I talked about a similar topic 3 or 4 years ago and have a completely different take for me than what I have right now. And it's like, cool, you can see me grow and change as a human being in real time and come to like different conclusions based off how the world around me is changing. I'm not just a one note, well, I am stubborn, but I'm not just like a one note. This is what I said before, so I'm always going to stick with it. And there's several times where I've like caught it, be like, here's something I said before, and I was wrong then because of what I've learned this past year or something like that.
Mhm.
So I'm never tired to repeat topics. Um, but I guess in my mind, it's frustrating when I hit on a heavy topic and I give like a bunch of points that in my mind are like foolproof. Like I've set the record straight that like I've said everything that could be said about this topic. There's no way anybody could still be upset or on the opposite side of my opinion or something like that. And then you just see somebody give that opposite opinion not related to me at all, and it gets a gazillion likes on social media or something
Mhm.
like that. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, didn't you? The whole world doesn't listen to me. Like everyone should know what I say and agree with it. Um, so it's that's where it's like, okay, do I get tired because I feel like I got to do it again? No, it's I did it, my audience heard it, and they had their opinions on it. And a couple or like 6 months from now, a new audience will come out and there'll be something else. Was that the answer you were looking for, or you were just saying, am I getting tired of talking about low ink every single month?
No,
Which I
that was
slightly am, but not
yeah,
so much.
that's the answer I was looking for. I mean, because I feel like
Okay.
because there are topics that, like you said, are pretty much like reruns, right? They appear every couple months, every so often that I always like to you know, I was curious because there are a couple episodes like where you've talked about too many tournaments, where you've talked about obviously, I mean, low link's a given, right? That's expected. But other things that happen in the scene in general of maybe like the game's dying or we're thriving again,
Yeah,
viewership's
yeah,
bad, you know
that's
what I
a
mean?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if there's anything like you see something happen and you're just like, oh, gotta talk about this one more time. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
I
a
mean
good way of putting it.
there are times like that, but again, it just circles back to like, well, A, not everybody watches this podcast, and B, not everybody watches the podcast and agrees with me.
Hmm.
So it's like, why should I be upset about something like that? Like I'm not that big of a deal.
I think also too, it's like you mentioned how like for you, like your like thoughts and opinions can change over time. I'd like to think maybe it's also, the viewership, opinion and thoughts can change as well. Someone else might tune in to something that happened back in January that's gonna happen that happens again in like November, and it's like they from those 11 months there were or 10 months there was like a change in judgment or a change in opinion based on information or just understanding to a different level of degree than they did before.
Yeah. And it's I talked a lot about how people DMing me looking for a fight. Uh
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who do reach out and say things like that, like, oh, you kind of changed my mind on this, or wanting to have a more in-depth discussion about the things that I said, and
Mhm.
like trying to show me a point of view that maybe I wasn't thinking of. There is a lot of that goes on too, um which I appreciate, and again just further enriches the whole point of the podcast altogether. It's like if we're having these conversations and dialogues and things, then it's like, yeah, let's do another episode of this. This is worthwhile and it's fun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's good to be able to share that experience with so many different people too. And like you said, new people and people that maybe like are consistent fans or viewers of the show. It's nice to have like sometimes that combination and see what they do from themselves in the chat itself, right? Or for all we know, that the a conversation that might be taken outside of the chats, into DMs of just people wanting to get more, thoughts on it. Hopefully, it's caused no horrible arguments where we're fighting for Twitter likes, but who knows?
Well, by the way, why I call them the idiots in chat, there's also several times where I'm having like this part in my segment where I feel like, yeah, I'm hitting on some really good points. Like
Mhm.
I've been holding this line in my head for months, and this is the perfect opportunity. It's funny and still impactful, and I'm like really into it. And I glance at chat, and they're talking about something completely unrelated, and it's nothing to do with anything I'm talking about, and it's just like memes and stuff. And it's like that's where I first like start like, man, my chat is really just a bunch of morons, and it's true. That happens. I don't want to. I don't. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are several times where I just get like, God, this chat is so stupid. I like they don't realize the gold I'm spitting here. But yeah, that's why I call them the idiots in chat because it's just like,
The-
okay,
yeah, no,
okay,
I think that's
we've
like,
we've lost the plot.
yeah. Lost the whole reason why we're even here to begin with, because we're
Yeah,
deciding to talk about literally anything else. So yeah, I think
yeah.
that's
I mean, they're having a
justified.
good time, I guess. Sure, just roll with it.
Might as well. Might as well. What is one
Oh.
thing you'd wish for your podcast that maybe hasn't been achieved yet, or that you want to do for the podcast in the future?
Uh, you know, I like Beep a lot. I
Hmm.
look at what they're doing, and I would love for the podcast to eventually become a mixture of that.
Hmm.
I One of the things that I love the solo segments that I do, where I'm just talking for 30 minutes. That's what I listened to growing up on sports talk radio, and I
Hmm.
think I've gotten really good at that. Um, but I think the podcast would be enhanced if more people were involved.
Hmm.
I don't have a producer. I don't have a writer. I don't necessarily need a writer, but I don't have like a team.
Yeah.
Beep clearly has a team, and they have like a different set of people on all the time. If there was, if I were to recreate the podcast or the podcast, it would be similar to what Beep is doing right now. And I'm a big fan of Beep.
Hmm.
Their episodes go way too freaking long, but other than but I think I've seen them like break down their segments. Like here's a 30-minute segment on YouTube. It's like, okay, that's easier to digest
Yeah.
than just kind of like looking for the topics that I want to see. But my what I would love to see the podcast get to at some point is bringing in more people, but still keep the solo elements that the podcast is known for to some extent.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I started doing this year was the taking your call segment. I
Yeah.
love that. I can't believe how I always thought that was going to be a total shit show when I brought that up because I was like, okay, so any schmuck can just come on here and say anything. But we've had really good people come on. We've had people expand on the conversations that I've had in the opening segments. Like two people were weird. Like one person was just like pillow talking, and I forget what the but for like the mass majority, I've been kind of blown away.
Hmm.
Um, and I always feel bad because there's so many people queuing up that I was like, look, I gotta shut this down. I can't talk to anybody else, so we're stopping at this person. But that's something I've added recently that I've really enjoyed. So it's like, okay, well, how can we expand on this as well? And also, those are great because it's 30 less minutes I have to write, and I can just let somebody else be entertaining for a good chunk of time. So yeah, that's my future, or that's my hope is eventually bringing on more people. But that requires more work from me, which
Hmm.
I don't like doing at all. Which is why the Popcast is yet again the laziest show in the Splatoon community. But no, yeah, that'd be a cool thing to see in the future.
Yeah, it's nice to have that kind of that mindset of like there's still like small areas that'd be cool to improve on. And it's always really uh it's all really awesome to like always have inspiration be able to be taken, especially from like again like we mentioned before, or like I said earlier on, like obviously you're pretty much were the only podcast that had appeared and it still runs to this day. It's the longest running. Obviously we're here, and then of course like you said the beep. So we're we're ranging at three solid concurrent running podcasts in the scene right now, and it'd be cool to see obviously more pop up, but it's really nice to get ideas that see what others run so well with, that how can something be taken and and tweaked it a bit to work for what you have going on. So yeah, I mean it's it's awesome to hear that maybe one day they'll be able to get some fresh blood in the TO world, and they'll be like, I want to help on the Popcast.
Well, that requires me putting up applications too, and like, here's a defined role of what I'm looking for, which I've never sat down to
Yeah.
do. Um, you saw this post. I think you reacted to this post. I think it was earlier this week.
Oh, from
I
Rada,
think
right?
yes. They were looking to do, I guess, kind of a similar thing to what you're doing, except bringing on more people just to talk about their experience growing in the scene or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I saw a handful of people being like, well, the Popcast exists and the Cactus Patch and Beep. And it's like, who cares? Like, what? Like, like, there's nothing that says you can't just. I mean, all I did was just turn on the camera and yap.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's just like, okay, well, let's just keep doing this. Like this is so easy to do. And I don't, there's a lot of people that would be good at stuff like this and they just don't want to do it. And that's why, because maybe they just don't feel like comfortable getting that first one out there. But I remember just doing it the first time, and then it was just like, okay, well, that went well, and people were saying nice things. I'll just keep doing it. And there's so many people that were like, just do one, just do something. And it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. The first episode of Beep was great. I think they hit it right off the bat. It took me a long time to get the groove that I'm at. I don't know how long, for you personally, it might have taken to, and maybe you're not even at a point where you're comfortable for all I know, but you had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to get the sense of like, well, other things exist, so you can't do it, because that just further pushes into this narrative that like, oh, well, I shouldn't try something. But it's like, this is so easy, and people pay attention to stuff like this. It might not seem like it because maybe not a lot of people are watching it live, but again, it always circulates. People will find, people are interested, they'll find it at some point.
I 100% agree, and I've always, as someone who does like content creation on the in the very very small portions of my time that I'm able to, when I'm even able to, the biggest thing I've learned is that imitation is the best form of flattery, and I never realized that until I was making my beginner's guide videos to competitive Splatoon, because for one, I didn't realize how good I was at like making sure I'm compiling my research, making sure I'm writing everything correctly, and providing some like joy and whimsy to it as well, so it's not super boring, because some people don't want to watch a boring guide, but you can't be afraid to potentially step over someone who's maybe done it longer or something that's currently going on, because at the end of the day, everyone is unique and they're all going to have unique ideas and ways that they're going to want to perform something, whether it's a YouTube video or a Twitch stream or podcast, for example, like we were just talking about. So I'm completely in agreement that like it'd be cool to see if like Rada and them are going to be able to put their own show on, and maybe similar to like what we all do, and of course like with the Beep as well, like just have guests on, have one main person and bring on guests to talk about what it is. I actually had gotten a chance to talk a little bit with Rada for something completely different, but that topic had came up of like being how Splatoon in general kind of helped grow you as like a person through the years, and because you don't really realize the effects that being in a community like this or on a scene like this for a game like this allows you to kind of grow and experience different things and have certain perspectives that usually you wouldn't get sometimes based on your in-person scenarios that you currently live in your life. So and to bounce back what you're saying, like how long it took me like probably 20 plus episodes before I got into a good rhythm of being like comfortable and figuring out exactly how I wanted it to go. Because the biggest thing for me was always like not having like a weird or like unknow how to respond to a response.
Yeah.
So, but once I got that down, I mean, we're flying colors.
Well, what's hard about what you do is that you have to like bounce off of what your guest is doing.
Yeah.
There'll be times where like you'll just give a thought, not a question, and you're kind of expecting the person to just kind of like pick up on the thought and just continue it. And a lot of times that person will just be like not know what to do, and they'll just be like, yeah, yeah. and then there's dead air, and you're just like, all right, well, let me just like, gosh, get some information out of you or something here. But yeah, that's an art that I've noticed just like watching you
Mhm.
over the episodes that you've done. You've gotten a lot better at dealing with that awkwardness that is out of your control
Mhm.
because it's just completely reliant on whoever it is that you're talking to. Um, and yet and that's something that like you can't be taught that.
Yeah, no.
You can't just like, I mean, maybe you can go to broadcasting school, I don't know, but like that's something you just have to a skill you have to develop yourself. That is a
Mhm.
very unique skill that you're never going to develop anywhere else,
Yeah, and
kind
experience
of
is
thing.
like the best way to get it, you know? Like just being able to live through that moment of that awkwardness and be like, I sometimes it's also like if I wasn't thinking about it, like in the moment, it's like after. It's like how do I like take care of that? So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely a form of like you said, either being somehow taught it in at a higher level of education or just fighting your way through the trenches to figure it out.
there's several little things that I just picked up on just from what I do, and I don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
But until I watch a previous episode and be like, man, that's awkward as hell. But yeah, you just and again, circling back to beat as I continue to go off topic here,
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
because we're talking about other people getting involved in things. What I
Mm-hmm.
love about Beep is they put people who have no experience, maybe commentators who have experience commentating, but have no experience like podcasting to in a sense, and they just let them go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, like the all women cast that they had last week, which I'm about a quarter of the way through because it goes for so long, but it's cool the content. Um, is for people and they're just there by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming all four of them are guests. I don't think they like actually work for Beep or anything like that.
Yeah.
But they're like, here, you guys go on camera, you just take over the show for the whole time. And there's been so many people on Beep that are like, okay, these folks are really good at talking. Like Pastry has been blowing my mind
Mm-hmm.
whenever Pastry's on there. Fern, I had no idea who Fern was before Beep. And now afterwards, I'm like, this is a person I should have fill in for the Popcast whenever I'm rearranging my room and I just don't want to do an episode. Like you just be a guest host for a day, talk about whatever you want for an hour. Um, so I feel like Beep has really done a good job of highlighting new people in this podcasting environment, who should go on to do other things. And maybe that's where I need to start poaching people from for whatever it is that I want to do in the future. I don't know.
So I'm making a list of people you're just gonna start pulling.
Yeah.
Take a vacation and be like, hey, run this for the next 2 weeks, and why don't you?
I mean, that's when I was on paternity leave. I had a Brush, JPEG, and Nito did a couple
Yeah,
episodes.
those were
And I'm
fun.
just
Those are
sitting
pretty
there.
funny.
Yeah. It's like I'm just sitting there at the hospital just watching this and it's just like, oh, poor guys. They have no idea what they're doing, but they're trying anyways. They're doing their best.
Hey, that's all they can do. So we've seen you having some good old fun in the Nintendo League show. How's the experience with that been?
Are you sure? That's fun.
I mean,
I can,
okay,
did
you
you see me
know,
carry Falco in that noise little thing that we did?
you're clearly just better. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I think that
The
was pretty funny that just Falco just couldn't lock it in.
So yeah, it's it's interesting being a part of the Splatoon 3 North American League.
Hmm.
It's a cool thing. And obviously there's a lot of stuff that I can't comment on.
No, absolutely.
But it is fun in a sense, and it is when I first started commentary and I saw Nintendo and I saw a lot of people kind of putting out there that they wanted their goal to eventually be on one of those streams.
Yes.
That was never my goal.
Hmm.
I never, not that I like hated it or that I, wasn't excited for when my friends became a part of it. Super proud of Falco, Knox. Rissa. I mean, there's several others that come from the community that I'm probably just kind of not thinking about
Mm-hmm.
that were on there, and I was super proud of them, and I was glad that they were on there, and I never was like, well, that's my goal. I want to join them, and well, eventually, it just kind of ended up being that way. So it's funny how life kind of ends up like that. But it's cool, you know. It's cool. My parents are really proud of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're more excited about it than I am. They watched the noise sound thing and they were laughing at it. And I'm like, Mom, you don't even know this game or like what any of these. You don't know like how good I am at guessing all of this stuff or
Mm-hmm.
how horrible Falco's tent umbrella impersonation is. Like you have no frame of reference for that. But to them, it's like, oh, my baby boy who grew up playing a video game that were like, stop playing that, go do your homework,
Mm-hmm.
is now on the Nintendo of North America channel, even though I'm doing something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a cool thing to be a part of, and that's not lost on me. Um, yeah, it's a cool thing. It's definitely unique from
Mm-hmm.
everything else I've done in this community so far.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, I feel like that's probably the same for a lot of people that in the community that recently got reached out to and obviously brought on that we've seen um, so far on either the NA League show or during the streams if they're being doing the commentary for it, or even like when we had those like we saw those like the community tidbits of like Riptide, right? I mean, it was really cool to see. Especially because at like previous events, we've always see like people from like Nintendo, like their reps be like, "Oh, we're taking photos, we're doing little interviews." It's cool to finally see like that actually them do it and it actually get used instead of just getting locked in a vault somewhere far away. I'm sure there's still big house 10 footage that they have that they're sitting on for Splatoon 2.
I mean, that I can't comment on. And by the way, there has been times where I have like kind of mentioned some things and I have gotten DMs not from like an overlord,
Hmm.
but just like from someone being like, "Hey, I don't think you're supposed to say that happened," kind of thing. And it's like, "Oh
Yeah.
well, I mean, I don't care,"
Yeah.
like, and obviously they don't either because I'm still playing hide and seek on their channel,
Yeah.
which is so it works out in the end there. And that's the other thing is like,
Hmm.
okay, now I'm a part of this
Yes.
to some extent. I don't want it to change who I am.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's oh, I shouldn't get too deep into this, but I feel like there are some people who have kind of like changed their personalities a bit because
Hmm.
I think that is what they think is expected of them.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to be me
Yeah.
regardless. And you wouldn't know from the way I do a podcast. And I'm still critical of this league. You listen
Hmm.
to the episodes I've done in the league. Like this
Yeah.
thing's going on for way too long. It's like there's no
Exactly.
reason it needs to be double elimination. And and it's not like I'm talking about like who, at the end of the day, who really cares.
Hmm.
But even though like minor things like that, I still feel like there are some people who are like afraid to point like minor things like that out because they're
Hmm.
like, oh well, that's gonna cost me something in the future.
Hmm.
And I've never gotten that impression from my interactions with folks on the Overlord side of thing. And and if eventually maybe I say something on the podcast and somebody pulls me aside and says like, I don't appreciate you saying that
Hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be like, well, this is who I am. I'm not going to try to change. Um, and I just noticed some people I feel like kind of have to
Yeah.
some extent. And it's like, well, I think you don't have to do that, but
Yeah.
okay.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like there's always the two sides of the coin when you have an opportunity like this show up, right? It's like those people who like get like an insane promotion for a company they're looking to get really far in, or someone who gets that job they've been fighting so hard for with their college degree that they spent thousands of dollars on, right? There's going to be
Yeah.
that aspect of where it's like, oh, time to shut down all my social media. It's time to stop interacting. Time to, in a sense, go mute, right? It's some people just have that fear of like I don't want to lose this chance or opportunity that I love that I'm a part of now. But then you have the other side that, like, you're on. Like, it's like, hey, like, thank you for this opportunity, but I'm not gonna change what I am, or who I am or what I do, um, because you gave me this chance. I'm still gonna do what I usually do. The only difference is I have this opportunity that you're giving me, and I'm having fun with it. It's just another thing added to my life now.
Yeah. And I've never had anybody pull me aside and say like, "Hey, get this kind of fixed," or like, "Hey, you need to clean this up," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, obviously, there are things that I can't talk about. Period. And
No,
I never
exactly.
have.
Yeah.
So and I completely get it. I completely get why people kind of go out of their way to be like overly nice about certain
Hmm.
things. But I think I'm living proof that you can be critical in a fair way of
Hmm.
things and still find some common ground in the end and still play hide and seek and noise sound things and potentially other stuff and be why. And I bring that up because I saw a lot of people. Okay, so like the league gets announced,
Yeah.
and then you see a bunch of people immediately come out and say like, "Hey, I'm a part of this,"
Yep.
and you see a lot of other people that are like, "Hey, that's cool. How do I get to be a part of this?"
Hmm.
And I have no idea how,
Yeah.
how,
Right.
how that kind of works out. And but what I would hesitate is, and the reason why I guess why I'm kind of bringing all this up is that I wouldn't want the whole community to
Hmm.
change because you're expecting some sort of pot at the end of the rainbow
Hmm.
that isn't going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's like you can be yourself and it can still end up working out
Hmm.
without having to be like, yeah, turf war is amazing, guys. We should have been doing this all along.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that based on the amount, I have the list on my phone. I used the notes app. I was keeping track like consistently of the people who were like, oh, yeah, I'm in this, or I'm doing this, etc. Um, like the so many different backgrounds that everyone comes from, and just the different parts of the community that these people are in and what they do in the scene. It's really really cool to see that it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, as long as you're not a complete, dick about it, or as a person,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have an opportunity maybe one day. I mean, I think another thing a lot of people was always like, oh, I bet it's based on like the size of like you or your presence in the scene. No, there's people who maybe like show their face once every couple months that had an opportunity here, and here they are now. You see them on the screen. Maybe they're doing spec cam. Maybe they're commentating, or like you have had the opportunity to with a couple others in the scene. You play some funny games on the show, on their NA League show. So it doesn't really matter. It's just who they decided. You know what I mean? And they felt there were some people that fit the roles that they were looking for, and that's how it is. So I think what you do and like how you've been kind of saying, like, just be yourself. That's what everyone just needs to do. Just be yourself, and then one day maybe you'll get a magic DM, or not from Magic 8 Ball, but like just magically get a DM or something from the Nintendo, and they'll be like, "Hey, come on to this project we're working on."
It's just kind of happens, you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
again,
It's
again,
random.
I can't go into details, but I will say it just kind of one day you just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. All right. That's
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Popgun, we're running the end of my questions that I have for you. So, what's next for you with these next couple months coming up before the new year starts?
I mean, it's just nothing big on the horizon. It's just kind of business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
The next episode of the podcast is going to be really easy. We could talk about week 3 of the Splatoon 3 North American League
Mm-hmm.
and Low Ink. So that's an episode that's pretty much already written. Um,
Nice.
because I know how the league is going to end up,
Yeah.
and it's writing about Low Ink is just super easy at this point because I've been doing it for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But for like the rest of the year, I am on IPL leadership. I'm not a director of IPL. That's Grayson Hohen, and they do a fantastic job. But at some point, IPL leadership's going to have kind of like a planning for 2026, what we want to see, what kind of projects we want to work on, what adjustments are we going to want to make. I have some minor adjustments for low ink that will be that won't like mean anything to the vast majority of people, but it's something we've been needing to kind of like tweak for a while that I think the community will appreciate.
Mhm.
Um, and just kind of thinking again, how can we be better stewards of the community rather than just being seen as like big bad IPL? Um, but nothing big. It's just kind of business as usual. Yeah, if you told me in January that we'd be doing multiple super jumps and Splat World Series and the Splatoon 3 North American League coming back out again, I wouldn't be shocked, but I also would be like, well, I'm not going to have time to be involved in all of that, but I am. So I
Mhm.
have no clue what 2026 brings up. But the exciting thing about being in the position that I am is that tomorrow something could happen that could change everything.
Mhm.
You might wake up and there's a new direct coming out. Splatoon Raiders, okay. A new tournament coming out, okay. New league coming out, okay. Somebody in your DMs that's going to lead the Splat World Series, okay. Like things just happen, and that's exciting. So I don't know what to expect in the future, but I know it's going to be something cool within the next year or so because that's how this community always works.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. Being, and in a sense, not having a plan, but just excited for the unexpected. Whether it's something great or something not, there'll always be a popcast episode to discuss it.
Yeah, there'll
um,
always be a podcast for sure.
yeah. So, well, then with that being said, Popgun, thank you so much for joining me today on the Cactus Patch. Congrats again on 300 episodes. Here's to 300 more. I like to kind of pass the mic at the end here as well, just a little bit longer. If there's any shout outs that you'd like to give out and where people can find you.
Shout outs to IPL, Grace and Hohen, and everybody that's been a part of IPL, JPEG and Brush, my fellow heads for Low Ink, Wolf and Toasty for Heads and Proving Grounds. I've met so many cool people through IPL in this community. Shout outs to Sploot Troops. Um, that group's been trying to get like a private battle going. And it's like I don't want to play Splatoon anymore. But do you guys play Halo Infinite? We could play some Halo Infinite. I don't know. We'll hang out soon. But just shout outs to everyone. Oh, shout outs to my wife too, who's like super awesome and has been putting up with me locking myself in this room, talking into the corner for 5 years. She's been my biggest fan and supporter through all of this, and that's super awesome. I'll close on this.
Mhm.
I've kind of mentioned before how um now that we have a kid,
Mhm.
how people have seen me and my wife has changed within the Splatoon community. Um Miss Popgun has been seen as just a mom
Mhm.
versus, people will mention PJ around me, but it's mostly, Popcast and all this other stuff, which I kind of expect. But the last time we were at Riptide, I got a lot more people asking me exclusively about PJ, which made me happy because it made me feel validated as a dad. And a lot more people were talking to Miss Popgun about Splatoon stuff. Like somebody approached us at breakfast and was like, "I remember playing with you at Launch Point," and I like just came to our table exclusively to talk to Miss Popgun about Launch Point, not her being a mom or not even wanting to talk to me. And that happened multiple times. So
Mhm.
that was cool to see that she's getting kind of the respect that she'd reserved. Not that people were being disrespectful,
Mhm.
but she's not being viewed as just a mom. And people are seeing me more than just the Splatoon guy. They're seeing me as a dad,
Yeah.
which is how PJ sees me, I think. And that matters so much. But that's all I wanted to say, Cactus. Hey, thank you for having me on. What took you so long?
A lot. Well, too much. It's so funny. I planned to have you on. I originally I had a note somewhere here. People I wanted to have on. You were at the top of the list. I think it was back in August, I had originally planned to like, oh, I'm gonna message Popgun, we're gonna have an episode, and then like lands were happening, and then there's like those like the online majors were happening, and then like just there's just too much that was like you can't wait too long to talk about those things.
Yeah.
And especially because like for me when I wanted to have you on, it was literally about I mean, it was cool to just talk to you just in general, just to have you on, just to talk about whatever. But I wanted to also to have like another secondary meeting to it, and then we just got honestly really lucky that I was looking for another thing to talk about for the podcast. It's been like 3 weeks because the last thing I talked about was God Riptide, and then I was talking with Pinky and Alice, and they were like, Popgun just did 300 episodes. Like, dang, 300 episodes? All right, yeah, they're like, let's do it. And then I was like, oh wait, we're in September, and you can ask some people like someone who's in chat or the Pixel. I was tweaking out because I was like, didn't they say there were 3 super jumps? When is the 3rd super jump? I couldn't remember, and I had to scroll on IPL's Twitter for like 10 minutes till I found the SWS post, and then right after was the super jump one where there was 3 super jumps. Like I knew it. There's a 3rd one coming. So yeah, that was fun. So thankfully there was a lot to talk about having you on with just the year IPL has had, and obviously the Popcast. So glad to have you on for the first time, and hopefully before episode 100, the next 48 episodes or 58 episodes, I'll have you on again sometime. Talk about who knows what.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll grow hair back by that point. We'll find out.
And then I'll probably end up tuning in your next taking your calls. All right, well, Popgood, thank you so much once again for coming on, and congrats again for 300 episodes of the Popcast. I can't wait to tune in to Mondays to hear your recaps, and then who knows, maybe I'll figure out what I'll have for episode 43 when I get there. But with that being said, that's going to do it from both of us here on the Cactus Patch. Thank you all for watching and or listening, whichever you chose to do today. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.